The late afternoon sun dipped low over the city of Charlotte, washing the streets in a warm orange glow. The air buzzed with the hum of traffic, the occasional car horn breaking the steady rhythm. Marcus Hale was heading home after a grueling day at the office, his Navy sedan gliding smoothly through the lanes. He had one hand on the steering wheel, the other resting near the console. The day had been long, too many reports, too many meetings, but home was only 15 minutes away. That's when it happened. Red and blue lights exploded in his rearview mirror, accompanied by the sharp wail of a police siren. Marcus blinked, momentarily thrown. He hadn't been speeding. No illegal turns, no sudden swerves. Still, he eased to the shoulder, putting his car in park. Behind him, a black and white cruiser stopped abruptly. Out stepped Officer Rick Dalton, mid-40s, barrel-chested, with a face carved from years of hard suspicion. His stride was heavy, his expression already set in stone, as though he'd made up his mind about the man in the car before even reaching it. Dalton stopped at the driver's window, resting one hand on the doorframe. "License and registration," he barked. Marcus kept his voice level. "May I ask why I'm being stopped, officer?" Dalton's lips twitched, almost into a smirk. "You were drifting over the line back there. Could be a sign of impairment." Marcus's brow furrowed. "I don't believe I crossed any lines, but here's my license and registration." His movements were slow, deliberate, careful. Dalton took the documents but didn't look at them immediately. Instead, his gaze swept over Marcus, his dark skin, the tailored suit, the calm expression that seemed to only make the officer's jaw tighten. "Where you headed?" Dalton asked. "Home," Marcus replied simply. Dalton cocked his head. "Where's home?" "South End." The officer let the silence stretch, his eyes narrowing as though trying to catch Marcus in a lie. Finally, he glanced at the license. His expression didn't change. "Step out of the car." Marcus's fingers flexed against the wheel. "Is there a reason for that?" Dalton's voice hardened. "You heard me. Outside. Now." Marcus exhaled quietly, opened the door, and stepped onto the pavement. The officer sized him up immediately. Marcus was taller, broad-shouldered, but his stance was relaxed. His calm seemed to bother Dalton more than any sign of nervousness would have. "Hands on the hood," Dalton ordered. Marcus turned his head slightly. "Am I being detained for a specific crime, officer?" Dalton stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You ask a lot of questions for someone who's just supposed to cooperate." Marcus said nothing. He placed his palms on the hood. Dalton began a quick, rough pat-down, his hands lingering longer than necessary. It was less about safety and more about dominance. "Nothing on you," Dalton muttered, sounding almost disappointed. Marcus straightened slowly, turning to face him. "Of course not." Dalton's eyes narrowed. "You seem real sure of yourself. You some kind of lawyer?" Marcus's lips curved slightly, not a smile, more like someone amused at the wrong assumption. "Something like that." The officer stepped forward, his tone turning sharper. "Listen, you might think you're smarter than me, but out here, I'm the one in charge." Marcus met his gaze evenly. "Out here, you're supposed to be serving and protecting. That includes me." For the first time, Dalton's expression flickered. Annoyance edged with uncertainty. "People like you always think—" He cut himself off, realizing the weight of his words. "People like me?" Marcus repeated, his voice soft but razor-sharp. Dalton shifted on his feet. "You know what I mean." "Oh, I know exactly what you mean," Marcus replied calmly. He reached into his inside jacket pocket, moving deliberately. "I'm going to take something out." Slowly, Dalton's hand hovered near his holster. "What is it?" "My badge." The words made Dalton's brow crease. Marcus pulled out a black leather wallet and flipped it open. Inside, a gleaming gold shield caught the fading sunlight. "Marcus Hale," he said evenly, "Head of Internal Affairs, Charlotte Division." Dalton stared, his mouth parting slightly. "Internal Affairs?" "That's right," Marcus replied, sliding the badge a little closer for emphasis. "My job is to make sure the people wearing this uniform uphold the laws and values they swore to protect, including you." Dalton's confident stance wavered. He took a half-step back, as though the badge itself carried a weight he wasn't ready to bear. "You didn't know who I was," Marcus continued, "but that shouldn't matter. How you treat someone should never depend on who they are, or what authority they have. The officer swallowed hard, his eyes darting between Marcus's face and the badge. The problem here, Officer Dalton, Marcus said, his tone steady but unyielding, is that this stop was never about a traffic violation. It was about a judgment you made before you even reached my window. Dalton didn't answer. His silence was its own admission. Now, Marcus said, you're going to hand me back my license, and you're going to think very carefully about every stop you make from this moment forward. Because the next time we talk, it won't be on the side of the road. It'll be in my office. Dalton's hands trembled slightly as he returned the documents. Yes, sir. Marcus took them without another word, walking back to his car. Before getting in, he looked over his shoulder. Remember, he said quietly, the badge doesn't give you power over people. It gives you responsibility to them. With that, he slid into the driver's seat and pulled away, leaving Dalton standing in the fading light, the siren lights now off, his career suddenly in uncertain territory. The next morning, Marcus sat in his office at the Internal Affairs Division. On his desk was a file he had pulled first thing that morning. Officer Rick Dalton. It was thicker than it should have been. Complaints, excessive stops, racial bias concerns, each one resolved quietly. Not anymore. Marcus leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. Dalton wasn't an isolated case. He was a symptom of a deeper problem, one Marcus was determined to address. Later that week, Marcus presented his findings to the chief. We can't just discipline officers like Dalton, he said. We need systemic change, training, accountability, transparency. If we don't fix this culture, we'll just keep creating more Daltons. The chief hesitated, then nodded. You're going to make enemies with this. Marcus's expression didn't waver. Then they were never on the side of justice to begin with. Months later, Marcus stood before a room full of officers, community leaders, and reporters. Justice isn't just about catching criminals, he said, his voice firm. It's about ensuring those who wear the badge live up to the honor it's supposed to represent. Respect is not optional, fairness is not optional, and change, starting today, is not optional. The applause was loud, but Marcus wasn't thinking about the clapping. He was thinking about the faces of every officer in that room and whether they understood the weight of his words. Because this wasn't just about one stop. It was about stopping this from ever happening again.